2017, 150,000 farms have shut down, and working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, like pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by AJ Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Ents, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's live Q&A, podcast, updates, all the things. Thanks for being here. Just as a reminder, I'm monitoring both Instagram. So if you're watching via Instagram or if you're on YouTube, Facebook, X, you can comment directly and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But for today's show, just want to give you guys a quick update on where we're at with our crowdfunding. We are super, super grateful. We just had an amazing investor today. We're at 86,000 raised in 2 weeks. We're almost halfway to our goal of 5 million, but we haven't started any ad spend really on social media to reach more people, but that will be kicking off here next week. So grateful. If you are one of the people that have invested so far, if you're on here, absolutely grateful for you. Let me just share with you guys my screen here, give you an idea of what the investment looks like. So this is the WeFunder crowdfunding. Let me change that so you can see it better. And the way it's working is that we are doing a rev share. So for it's a minimum of $100. For every $100 you invest, we're committed to paying back double that. It's actually 2.5x return for the first $250,000 raised. And then after that, it goes to 2x. The speed of which we return that will be based on how fast we can grow. So if you are interested in helping us build a resilient food supply chain and being involved in that, we feel like raising the capital that we need from the people so we can do this by the people, for the people is the best way to do it. Our commitment is that we're never going to sell. The commitment is that we are going to keep ourselves in a position where we maintain control of the operation, the setup of From the Farm, so that we can always put the needs of the farmers and ranchers first. That way we don't risk, nefarious people getting involved purely for the dollar. And so if we can raise the capital by the people, for the people, then we can keep this going. I am very confident that we're going to be able to do that. That does not mean there won't be other opportunities for investors to come in with equity later on, but we need to get as far down the road as we can to make sure we maintain control. So anyway, thanks again for all of those who have gotten involved and invested. We're absolutely grateful for you, and we're going to continue to drive this forward and help save our farms and ranches by bringing customers right to them. Our overall vision for From the Farm is think Airbnb, but local food. So what that looks like is you open up the map, you can actually go to our website, and on our website, you can shop. Let me show you. So I'm going to put my zip code in. It's going to pull up my area, confirm location. And now my my website here is going to show, or your website, according to your zip code, is going to show you the producers that are closest to you so that you can buy direct from them. In tonight's episode, I want to talk to you about how to source beef at the lowest price possible, right from the rancher. So anyway, you can go through here, see the different producers that are on here, or you can go up to our map view. And if you zoom out, first it's going to show you the closest people up here, but you can zoom out and just get a sense of the producers that we have so far on from the farm throughout the country. One of our biggest challenges is meeting the farmers and ranchers. They're very busy, especially this time of year. So we've got 52 that are live, and we've got another 150 or so that are in some level of sign up. So hopefully in the winter, when people slow down, we'll be able to get more producers on here so that y'all can start sourcing as close to home as possible. Ultimately, our long-term goal is that you can find somebody within 1-day delivery. So our next goal is that there's one producer in every state. Now, most of the producers we have on here right now are meat producers, beef, pork, chicken, but we've got grain coming on, producers, the farmers that are growing grain. I talked to a farmer yesterday in Nashville. I'm going to fly out to meet them in November. They have started raising all no glyphosate used on their grain. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to them. If you're worried about the glyphosate in your grain, or on your bread products, which you should be, then I'm really excited to introduce you to those guys. Let me use my words, AJ. So a couple questions coming in. Let me see if I can, we've been looking for something like this in Colorado. Yeah. Awesome. We have currently in Colorado, we've got, these guys right here, and they're incredible. This is Ranchlands Chico Basin Ranch. They're actually on the hunt. If you've been following my stories, they're on the hunt for some new ranch land. They've lost their lease here in Colorado. I believe it's their Colorado ranch, but you can order right from them. Go to their website here, scroll down. Right now, they just have ground beef. Yeah, so as we grow, we'll have more people on here that can provide for you direct to the consumer. A lot of the producers on here right now, most of them, in fact, they will ship right to you. So if you don't know a local farmer and rancher, if you're not already sourcing direct, then I'm going to say go ahead and order from one of these producers. They're incredible people. I have personally spoke to every single one of them on the platform, and they would love to serve you. Raw milk is also allowed. Somebody asked that on Instagram. Raw milk is allowed. Now it has to be on your state, by your state's laws, unfortunately. So put some pressure on your local state ag departments, and get them to, if it's not already allowed, food sovereignty, food freedom laws are really important. Wyoming has a really incredible one, which basically states that if you produce food in the state of Wyoming, you can sell it to a Wyomingite without jumping through a bunch of hoops. They basically trust us to source, we're adults. Choose for yourself, source from who you choose, and it's up to you. So somebody just asked about Florida. Let me jump back here real quick and show you. We do have a few producers down in Florida. So you just go to fromthefarm.org and you can look right around here and see the different farms and ranches that are available in Florida. And so they're incredible. So let me jump into this. Glyphosate is a toxic ingredient in Roundup, which has been known to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 100%. I read a book recently about glyphosate it was written by one of the doctors that actually testified in court, and they won every single case about the cause of glyphosate causing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was a fascinating book. Let me pull it up here real quick. While I'm doing that, I'm going to talk to you guys about buying quarter halves and wholes. They call those beef shares. And also asking your producer for their cull cows when those are ready. Those are a couple of little hacks or secrets that if you don't understand the language or the lingo, If you can ask your producer, and that will save you money. Let me see. I'm just looking for this book real quick. Toxic Exposure is the name of the book. It was very good about the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with glyphosate. I heard from a person that texted me the other day. Their family owns a very large grain lift in, don't remember where it was at. I think North Carolina. And they are a organic operation. And so what was happening is they were finding out that some people were growing their grain without glyphosate, but then they were spraying glyphosate on it to dry it out, which is wild, because now it's a fresh coat of glyphosate on your grain. So if you're going to source grain or any food for that matter, you want to try to find stuff that's not been treated with glyphosate. Now, with that said, I talked to a gentleman, Dr. Stefan Van Fleet. He did a presentation. He works at Utah State University, and they study food, and they're actually doing a very large study right now. You are a victim of glyphosate poisoning. Wow. Share a little bit more about that if you wouldn't mind. Would love to share that live here as you type it. But I asked him, if an animal eats, is there any evidence, because they're doing all this research, if an animal eats grain that has glyphosate on it, is there any evidence that glyphosate then transfers to beef and then we consume it? And they said that as of right now, there's no evidence to show that that's the case. So that's good news, maybe. The only question I have to that is, if that's the case, and it's a different process, I understand, but I think they need to look into it more, because they've also shown that if an animal eats, they're actually finding microplastic, and we might do a show just on this, but they're finding microplastic in our food, in our beef specifically. And I saw a video a year ago where they were taking all of these leftover candy bars and candies and so forth, and thrown into a big grinder. Now they didn't take them out of the wrappers. They just threw wrapper and all into these big grinders and emulsified it. And they used that as a feed supplement. I don't know who's doing this. These are large feedlots that are typically the culprit, but they ground it up and they put it into the feed for the animals. So they're eating ground up plastic and candy bar to add candy bars and other things just to put weight on. So anyway, so with that said, let me jump into what I want to talk to you guys about. So I'm going to pull this graphic up real quick here, and I've got it on my other screen just so it's a little larger so I can explain it. So when you're looking at sourcing beef, this is a really good chart. I didn't make it. Whoever this belongs to, thank you. This is a phenomenal breakdown, but it shows you what a 1/16 of a cow would look like if you're buying that for food, an eighth, a quarter, a half, or a whole. And they've got correlating weight. So a 1/16 will be somewhere between 20 to 25 pounds. Now, this could, of course, vary depending on the finishing process. Finishing process means when the animal's about ready to be slaughtered for beef, how they finish it in the last few days is called their finishing program. And last few days could be a month, could be 2 months, could be longer, depending on the operation. But what they'll do is they'll finish it on a certain program. Now, if you're buying grass-fed and grass-finished, that's significant. You want to look for grass-fed and grass-finished. The reason for that is the USDA allows you to put grass-fed on a label if it's been fed grass ever. But that doesn't mean it was given or fed grass in its final days. So if you're somebody who really wants to consume only grass-fed and finished beef, you want to look for grass-fed and grass-finished. And in that case, they could finish them on forage that they harvested and fed them in a bunk, in a feedlot, depending on the time of year could be the reason for that. Maybe they don't have any, maybe it's the winter and they bring them in to finish them on the winter versus on pasture. You can find labels or people that will articulate pasture finished or pasture raised and finished. So really look at the details. And from the farm, our producers put those tags in there, and you can search by that tag as well. So let me get back to this. So you can kind of see this is based on a 24 cubic foot freezer. And so that's the size that they're referencing. So if you buy a whole cow, 320 to 400 pounds, and as I was saying, that would vary based off the finishing. If an animal is being fed corn and grain to finish them out, this could easily go up to 450 or 500 pounds in finished weight. Usually your grass-fed animals, at least in my experience, you're going to see those finishing around 350 to 400. Some people have really good genetics. They've managed the genetics of their animals really well, so they can. Sorry, just making sure I'm eat venison. Just making sure I'm watching Instagram as well. But based on the genetics of the animal, some genetics will put more weight on with grass. And so they might have a heavier animal, but on average, the grass finished animals I've seen are usually smaller. So that'd be in your 320 to 400 pound size that you see there. And that's going to take up a whole freezer. So if you're buying a whole cow, you're going to fill up the whole freezer. If you're buying a half a cow, it's going to be half the freezer based on 24 cubic foot. Now the next deal down there says meals. So on the left, it says meals, and that's based on a family of 4 to 5. So on a whole beef, you're going to have about 210 to 270 meals, depending on how much beef you're cooking per meal with a whole beef. My family of 4, we bought a whole beef and it lasted us a year because we're also eating chicken as well. Mostly chicken that we raised ourselves, or we'll buy pork from our local butcher shop or slaughterhouse. And so I don't even know the last time we bought meat from the grocery store. It doesn't mean we haven't. My wife's the one that does that. So, every once in a while she might, but we really try to make it a practice to buy right from the producers everything that we can. Produce is a little more difficult. Produce, getting into this, we realized, excuse me, that small farms that produce produce, they were captured a long time ago in terms of big corporations taking those operations over. And so typically, if you can find your local market garden or grower, they'll have a CSA. We're hoping to add some of those guys on here at some point soon. But typically, finding your vegetables locally is a little bit more challenging, but it certainly can be done and should be if you can find that. And then the last one down there is your week's supply. So that's based on eating beef 2 times a week with that family size. And so you're looking at 70 to 90 weeks of beef at that rate down there at the bottom. So when you're looking to buy direct, one of the reasons you're going to want to buy in bulk is because you can save money. Let me bring this back up one more time. If I, as the producer, have to coordinate and organize and manage 20 to 25 pounds or less, I have more materials. I have more boxes. I have more insulation. I have more dry ice. I have more labor. I've got a lot more added or extra to my job as a producer to sell you smaller quantities. And so I have to adjust for that, and I adjust for that in pricing. But if you take my whole beef, you just made that process way simpler for me. And typically what you would do is buy that beef on the hoof. Buying on the hoof is also beneficial, especially in areas where the producers don't have access to slaughterhouses. In our country, we only have less than 10,000 slaughterhouses nationwide. And so there are large areas of our country that don't have the slaughter capacity to keep up with local demand even. So if I can sell you my whole animal, a whole beef at one time, and your name is on the brand at that point because it's still alive, it's still on the hoof, basically it's your cow, and now you trust me to finish it out for you and to get it to the processing facility, and then you're going to give the processing facility your cut sheet, or what they call a cut sheet, which is how you want that beef to be processed. How much roast do you want, or what roast do you want? How much ground beef do you want? Do you want your short ribs, or do you want to turn those into ground beef? And so the local butcher shop, when you buy a whole animal, they will get on the phone with you and walk you through the process, and you can decide how you want that processed. You can even tell them in some cases, I would like my steaks 1.5 inches. or 1 inch, depending on who you are and what your family eating habits are. And so you can really customize your purchase that way. So buying on the hoof, now you own that cow and they're going to finish it out for you and get it there. And because you've made that simpler for me, because I know you already own that, that's a much easier process for me as the producer. Now I'm not selling cows. I'm just giving you an example, right? So you go on to From the Farm, you go to, let me show you real quick. I'll share my screen again and I'll go to Three Sons, because Three Sons, I know they do quarter halves and wholes. They also have a sample box. So if I go buy the whole beef, it's 400 pounds, $4,500. If I'm breaking that out into smaller boxes, that's probably going to sell for about $6,000. But because I can sell it in bulk, it's going to be cheaper. Now you can find people that are selling cheaper beef if this is out of your price range. So just shop around and see. But if you order this now, you've got your 400 pounds that'll be ready to deliver when it's finished. So you'll pay, in some cases, the producer will have you pay the whole thing up front. In some cases, they'll have you do a non-refundable deposit. A lot of times, or sometimes I should say, what'll happen is somebody will buy from the producer and then they'll back out. And if they don't get a deposit, that causes a lot of problems because they've already got it scheduled. They were counting on you to pick it up. And so they'll do a non-refundable deposit sometimes. But once that deposit's paid, you'll see that they've got a date here of when it'll be ready. Now this hasn't been updated yet, but I know for a fact that Brad, the rancher at this location, he is going to have his next round of processing done in November. So you would buy it in advance, get it coordinated, and offer tell them the cut sheet or how you would like it cut. Sometimes the ranchers will do that for you. Other times they'll have the processing facility offer that. So that's what it looks like to buy a quarter, half, or whole. You can get them typically at a better price when you're buying in bulk, but you have to consider that and have the freezer space available. On the other side of that, not just to have it at a better price, you're also talking about food security. If I've got a whole beef in my freezer, I know that no matter what's going on in the marketplace or in the country, I've got a whole beef in my freezer to feed my family. Now, you also have to keep in mind that that is also your weak point. So you need to maybe consider some redundancy. If the power goes out, how are you going to keep that frozen? So whether you have a simple solar system just to run your freezers, which is what I'm going to do at my house, or you've got some backup generators, you just want to keep that in mind. And that's kind of fresh for us because last week, two of our freezers were actually unplugged by a contractor that didn't know that that's what the plug was going to. It got unplugged on Friday. We had 40 chickens that we spent months raising, and then a lot of time and frankly, the processing side was not fun, but it's valuable. It's important. So there was a lot of chicken in there that was going to go bad. What we found was the top layer of chicken in our freezer was still just thawing. So fortunately, it was cold enough here in Cody that it wasn't hot enough to thaw the whole freezer really quick. So we ended up canning our chickens that were thawing, and then we just turned the freezer back on and kept going. So that forced us to learn how to can. We haven't done canning. My grandma did it all the time. My aunts would get together and do canning at my grandma's house, but I haven't done it personally, and so it forced us to learn it. And my wife and I and my kids got involved, and we now have 31 quart jars of chicken canned and ready to go, and that'll sit shelf stable down in our crawl space for 18 months without refrigeration. So that's extremely valuable for us as we want to become more resilient regardless of what the food supply chain is doing and what's happening in our country. So canning is also a really great idea. We're going to do that a lot more. We'll probably time it out and just keep canning more things. The process of canning is with a pressure canner. It's easy to find on YouTube if you want to go look that stuff up. We're probably going to start a resource and training guide so that we can help people learn how to do that. But we're learning as we go right now. Read the ticker. Yeah. I don't know if you're telling me or asking me or just telling everybody else. Oh, where do I get more info? You're helping other people. So if you go to fromthefarm.org, that's where you can find the store, sign in, set up an account. If we don't have anybody in your area yet and you set up an account, for some reason, you will be alerted when a new producer in your state signs up. So if you don't want to buy from somebody on there and have it shipped yet, for whatever reason, just sign up and have your store ready. So, or your customer account ready so that when we have a producer sign up in your area, you get notified. So yeah, we learned how to can, and now we've got 30, basically it was 10 chickens. So we have 10 chickens in bottles ready to go. It's kind of weird. It says canning, but it's actually in glass bottles. But now we've got 30 chickens ready to go. And you're welcome, Jim. And so we feel way more prepared for a worst case scenario. If you're here, you're following me, you're probably looking at all the things happening in the world, and maybe you're concerned about what's going on. And this is one way you can start taking responsibility for your own food sovereignty. Even if you can't raise your own chickens or you can't find local chickens, you can go to the grocery store and buy chicken and can it. So start prepping a little bit at a time. Keep in mind the stuff from the store, the chicken from the store is not going to be nearly as healthy, most likely, depending on what you're buying. And, but it's still better. Look, I tell people all the time, I will have no problem if I can't source locally or right from the producer. If we're hungry and the store has it, I don't care if that cow's been fed, ground up candy bars with plastic in it. If we're starving, I'll deal with the consequences later, but I'm hungry. My kids are hungry. We're going to eat it. So, now with that said, I also don't want to over vilify what's at the store. Just know that you may not be getting what you think you're getting. Eating meat, no matter where you're getting it from, is still better than not eating meat. You may be a vegan on here and you might argue that fact with me. That's okay. But having it is better than not having it. And so I'll get it from wherever I have to if I need to source it. But really what we're trying to do is keep our farmers and ranchers in business. Let me jump up here on Instagram real quick. Speedy was letting us know his experience with glyphosate. So he said, I have B-cell acute lymphatic leukemia, which is a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I started working on a farm and ranch owner who provided us with glyphosate concentrate to kill several types of weeds. Where he kept his cattle, he had 500 acres of 3 types of hay for his cattle, and we need to kill briar patches and other vegetation with thorns or poison flowers. So it sounds like you were applying that. We used Roundup and glyphosate concentrate several days out of the month from March to October. I was exposed to the chemical quite often, and I developed testicular cancer first. Man. Folks, if you're a prayer warrior, let's pray for Speedy. After achieving remission from testicular cancer, 5 months later, I came down with B-cell ALL. I'm at 8 years with the leukemia. Oh my goodness. We didn't know about the Roundup and glyphosate until it came out on the news in 2016, so I stay away from it. That's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. Man, sorry to hear that. Right now, I just did a story. It's a reel on my Instagram that they uncovered that the federal government was funding a program, whether they knew it or not, to actually target anybody that has this conversation. And it was the chemical companies who are targeting us. So, for example, by me saying this, if I had a big enough reach, they would build a whole profile on me so they could come after me and slander me. But it gets worse. They didn't just do it on the person that said it. They went and looked at their family, people close to them, people that worked with them, and they built profiles on all of them so they could do some mafia type crap and try to keep people silent for that reason, because they have a lot to lose. And we now know that we do not need pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. We don't need glyphosate to farm. When farming is done with a real focus on the land and soil, if you have certain noxious weeds, that tells you what's going on in the soil. So those who go and study soil health, they will actually be able to tell you, well, if you got these noxious weeds growing, your soil's telling you're missing something. And so when the livestock and the land is managed holistically with those things in mind, they can get rid of those things without having to apply those chemicals. It takes time, and it takes a lot of focus and new learning, which is not easily accessible, because the majority of the education provided to our farmers and ranchers happens through land grant universities, and land grant universities are funded by big chemical corporations. It's just like going to school to be a doctor. You are taught how to prescribe pharmaceuticals. You're not taught how to teach somebody how to eat different so that they don't need the pharmaceuticals, because you're a specialist in a certain field. Casey Maines just talked about this recently and is talking about it quite a bit, where she was a well-respected doctor and quit because she started seeing and questioning what we were doing. Like, I'm giving these people prescriptions, but that's really not solving the root cause. We're only treating the symptom. And she was told by upper echelon doctors, you have no right to talk about nutrition because you didn't go to school for that. So basically, shut up and prescribe them medication. That's not necessary. We can eat better, fix our chronic health through our food, get rid of the chemicals that are in our food, and make America healthy again. So, okay, let me go to another question. What is the difference between bulk buying and buying a calf, quarter, or half beef? That is the same. Great question, Pepper Potts. Buying a quarter, half, or whole is buying bulk. You could probably get a good deal if all you wanted was a bunch of ground beef, because producers have a hard time moving. Well, they used to. Actually, ground beef is trending up because of cost of food. More people are buying ground beef. I've always liked ground beef and really preferred it because of the versatility of ground beef. But if you called a producer and said, I just want something's going on with my computer here, keeps muting me. But anyway, so that is the same. Bulk buying is also buying a quarter, half, or whole, or any large quantities. Hey, Jay, we've been getting calls here in California. It's working. We should see some orders soon. Awesome. That's from A7 Butchering and Processing. Let me just give you all a shout out real quick. I'm going to pull their process up. So these guys are amazing. They just came on a couple of weeks ago. They're one of the all our producers are amazing, but they all have unique stories for the, in and of themselves. I think you guys are right here. So A7 Cattle Company, they have a mobile slaughter. So that means they go around and process in the field. I will tell you that I've seen mobile slaughter processing, and that's really cool because the cow is just standing there looking at you, super calm, no stress. And then 1 second they're there and the next second they're gone. That's probably the most humane processing I've ever seen. But A7 Cattle Company is on fromthefarm.org. Reach out to them and buy from them. They have a really great program. So, yeah, let me scroll down and see if I've got any more questions here. I'm glad to hear that, you guys. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, God bless, Speedy. Somebody's looking for you in California. Exactly why you started From the Farm. Are you asking, or was that a comment on what I was saying? I started From the Farm because I was worried about seeing my children go hungry. I was worried that somebody else would have to feed them. When I saw the supply chain start crumbling during COVID, I reflected on us taking care packages when I was in Iraq to a family. And I started seeing my face on the man that was watching us feed his family, and I couldn't sleep. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not a software guy. I come from the health and fitness space, And, but I kept seeing this man. And so as I was seeing this guy in my mind, which I believe God was the one who had me think of this, because I hadn't thought about that really for 20 years. I said, okay, God, who do I have to talk to make this make a difference? And that's when the journey started, and I met the right people, and now we have a functioning software. But it was because of that, not wanting to see my country fall into famine, that we went to work. And famine will happen when we don't have small family farms and ranches to buy from. We talked about it last week. It's probably going to when we have 1.8 million farmers left in our country to feed 320 million people, so 2% or less of our population are growing our food, that's a recipe for disaster. That's just one of the recipes for disaster, though. If we have a major power outage, we have a problem. If we've got fuel shortages, we have a problem. If we have attacks on our food supply chain infrastructure, we've got a problem. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in a short period of time. And we are just wanting to be here to be part of that solution to help make a difference. So anyway, let's get back to it. Any other questions? Thank you. Monsanto Corp is who is responsible for Roundup. Yes. And they've paid out $10 billion to the people who have been affected. Monsanto was just merged with Bayer. So isn't it interesting? We're going to sell the problem and then we're going to sell the cure. That is exactly what's happening. So you get cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and don't worry, we've got the solution, and we've got that through our parent company, Bayer. Just seems like there's something wrong with that. Yes, they've paid out $10 billion to people that have been affected. So this is what's crazy. If you haven't heard this, this should be a priority to share with every citizen in the country that glyphosate is causing cancer, because it's proven. It's not even questionable. And yet they're still using glyphosate to dry out grain. It's still in production. It just blows my mind. I'm going to get riled up if I keep going down that path. Yeah, Callie's amazing. You're reading her new book, Live Clean. I haven't read that yet, but that's on my list. Can you please repeat calling a producer about ground beef only? Yeah, just if you reach out to the producers, whether it's somebody on our platform or any producer, just ask them if you can buy just ground beef and how much it is a pound, and if they have a bunch of leftover. The other thing you can do, because this is what I would do, ask them if they have any ground beef that is older in their freezer. If you're really shopping on a budget, tell them, I don't care if it's a year, if it's 6 months old, 9 months old, a year old. I've eaten beef out of my family's freezer that was 2-3 years old. As long as the packaging is good and there's no freezer burner ice crystals, it's great. And you can put food on your family's table for very cheap because it's taking up space. And frankly, the ranchers, guess what? That's what they're eating. They're not eating the fresh product because they know there's nothing wrong with it. But typically consumers have been trained that there's a problem with it. So if you're shopping on a budget, ask your producers if they have ground beef that's taking up space in the freezer that's older, and you'd be happy to buy it. And just tell them I would like it to not have any, freezer burner ice crystals on it, but would like to source from you if you've got that product available. Ground beef is all I eat. Thanks for your answering. Yes, ground beef is great. Yeah, I can tell that my daughter's trying to use my earbuds, and so it keeps taking over. So she might have stopped trying, knowing that she's interfering, but I'm not sure. It might happen again. Monsanto Corp. I'm reading these comments. If you're commenting online, for some reason they're not coming in, but I am seeing them on Instagram. So I'm going to keep answering on Instagram unless they pop in from the other places, Facebook, YouTube, and X. But Monsanto Corp has been responsible for chemical dumping and causing a whole bunch just flooded in. Dumping and causing a bunch of people to get cancer and many other illnesses. Yep. Family of 6 would like grass-fed organic. What should I buy? Eating meat 4 times a week. family of 6, I would buy bulk, and I would go on to fromthefarm.org and type in grass-fed and finished or regenerative, and that will pull up the ranchers that are finishing with that program. And so then you can shop that way. But I would look for regenerative or grass-fed and finished, and that would be perfect. You can even put organic in and see if anything pops up. I don't know how many of our producers are using that term. That term is slowly slipping away because it's been co-opted by big corporations and isn't what it was. So most people are using different terms now when you're buying direct. And it will only be a matter of time, which is already happening, where regenerative is being greenwashed, is the term, and by big corporations, and they're claiming things that aren't actually true. So, on our platform, we all the producers on there, we speak to them personally. Our first priority is to ensure that they are a private family-owned operation or a private-owned operation. We want to cut out all the middlemen and let you go right to the producer so that you can ask the questions that matter to you and your family. We are not verifying any of their claims. So it is up to you to contact them and ask them things that matter to you most. And most of the producers on there would be happy to talk to you because you're a customer for them. From Facebook, feel free to ask. Oh, I wrote that. Share this platform to all. It reduces the carbon footprint to have the best source of beef and produce. And that's accurate. So if one of the things you're worried about is climate or climate change or whatever, I use those words very loosely because I don't believe in the climate change narrative that's being pushed that is using cows as the problem. But certainly agriculture and the way agriculture is done can cause desertification, like the Dust Bowl, right? If you remember the Dust Bowl of the past, we're starting to see that again. But that's typically not because of the producer. It's because of the regulations and limits that are put on them by the people who they're leasing the ground that they're ranching on. Especially in the West, most producers are running livestock on leased ground through the Department of the Interior. So that could be the Bureau of Land Management. Short version was the original BLM. We always call it BLM. That confuses people now. But Bureau of Land Management, the Park Service, Forest Service, and they will tell the producer how many animals they're allowed to have on the public land that they're leasing for grazing. The problem is the information they're running off is either outdated or just intentionally wrong. And so in many areas in the West, you're only allowed to have one cow calf, so mama cow, baby cow, per 100 acres. And in desert environments or in high desert environments, the breakdown of organic matter is done best through the gut of an animal, through the rumen of ruminating animals. Elk, deer, moose, cows. We've got a lot of pronghorn where I'm at, those kinds of things. They break that down. They've got the moisture in their gut to break it down and let it go into the soil. When you're in highly, that's deserts, what is called brittle environments. So you take a stick and it snaps easy. Like that's the explanation for brittle. Brittle environments need more moisture. That comes from the rumen of an animal. If you go into a jungle or a forest, those aren't as necessary because the moisture in that area breaks down the biological matter as it falls to the ground from tree branches or leaves or so forth. But you need ruminating animals to do that in the desert. So let me see what other questions. We're on Central Coast of California. Oh, A7 Butcher. Awesome. What should I buy for fam of 6 grass-fed organic? Oh, we already answered that. Yeah, good to know about the use of the word organic. Careful with that. It's the green new scam, 100%. All right, caught up with the questions. So let me just recap with y'all. If you're looking to buy on a budget, call your local producer, ask them for we didn't talk about coals. Let's talk about coals real quick and then we'll recap. A cull cow is a cow that's on its way out. It's done doing its job for the ranch. It could be a bull that is older and they're no longer breeding enough of their cows. And so they're going to get rid of the bull because you can't feed anything that's not doing its job. So a bull could be a cull. You can have a cow that didn't get pregnant, and that would be a cull. So if it doesn't have a baby, the rancher is going to get rid of it because for whatever reason, it's not fertile enough and they don't want to have that eating up forage. Remember, again, they've only got so many animals they can have on the ground they're running, so they have to manage that. And so it could be a cow that didn't get pregnant. There could be a number of different things that's going to have them remove that animal from the herd. Typically, a bull is not people's first go-to. When a bull gets turned into meat, most of the time they just ground the whole thing because they're tougher. Usually that's what you get from a bull because of all the testosterone, as the meat's a little more tough. I've eaten bull meat. I have no problem with it, especially if it's in ground beef. Why? Because I'm seasoning it for whatever the meal is I'm cooking, right? You're usually not just smashing ground beef down and eating it plain. It's got some sort of mixture in there. So I've never had a problem eating bull meat. And most people just don't know that that's a deal. So if you're wanting to shop on a budget, ask for the next time they're going to cull one of their bulls. So a cull cow is another thing that you can ask them for. Do you know Camden of Grazed Provisions and Painted Quarters Cattle Co.? I do not, but if you know them, I would love to talk to them. In fact, any of you on here, if you are a producer, we would love to have you join us if you're not. I'd love to get on the phone with you, talk to you about what we're doing, how we're doing it. I already mentioned that we're not ever selling, and that's because if you're going to get behind a movement, y'all should know that isn't just going to get sold off to the highest bidder, just like Siete chips. If you're a Siete chip fan, I know your knee-jerk reaction was probably like mine, like, oh, they're going to start using seed oils. That's why we bought Siete Foods, is because they didn't have seed oils. So for the same reason, we're not selling. We don't want you guys to come behind and back us to help build a new food system just to have it sold to the highest bidder to be either shut down or converted to something that works for them. So that's one thing that we're committed to. The other thing is that, and this is going to relate more to the producers, but maybe good information for y'all. We only do a commission. We do 15% of what's sold. The reason that we did that is right now, farmers and ranchers only get 14 cents on the dollar when it comes to beef specifically. 14 cents. The middlemen get everything else. So we said, okay, let's flip it on its head. Building the software costs money, marketing costs money. So we have to bring something in so we can build this and make it the Airbnb of local food. So we do have to bring revenue in. And then the producer still has the processing fee that they have to pay for. So there's a couple of things in there that still will come out of their bottom line. But we wanted to keep it so low that it was the opposite of what currently exists. And the way we make money from the farm is from affiliate partners. So we've got a couple of affiliate partners that are on board now. We're building out the store to offer their products, but things like Redmond Real Salt and the seasonings they have. We've got Double Shot Coffee. Coffee doesn't grow in America. This guy went and met and shook the hands of the farmers himself in the countries that they're sourcing their coffee from. He's doing the same thing for them, cutting out the middlemen. He's the only middle guy. It's the coffee farmer, him, and then us. So Double Shot Coffee is on there. We've got an amazing partner with a kombucha brand that's jumping on board. So we're really excited to have her on there. So we'll share information on that, but kind of back to my point here is that we believe that if the money we earn from the farm goes back into increasing the message here and improving the software, that's where the commission that we earn from the producers goes, just to make it better for them and better for you guys, the customer. Where we will have to make our profit is from other sources. So if you guys come to our platform and you trust us to help you and to do all these other things, then hopefully you'll shop other products there instead of Amazon, and that will help us continue to do what we're doing. So we've really designed this in a way, or the intention is to design this in a way where the marketplace truly exists for the farmers and ranchers with them as the focus. So if you're a producer, we'd love to talk to you and share more of the mission and our values and so forth. So, okay, to recap, you've got your live animals. So you'll buy quarter, half, and wholes. So you can go in on an animal with your neighbor or 4 neighbors. You can call a producer and say, we've got 4 people. We want to buy a quarter each, and they can break it up that way. And it's going to save you money because it's less logistics for the producer to get that to you. Now, one of the downsides is it's really expensive to ship large quantities. UPS, the way it works is if you go over 50 pounds, the cost just elevates really quickly. So you do want to try to buy in bulk closer to home if possible. We are looking at different solutions through railway or semi to reduce the cost to ship, because a lot of you guys live in areas where you're just not going to be able to source it. It'll have to come from not nearby. I lived in Phoenix for 12 years. There are producers in Arizona and they're selling direct to consumer, but they can only raise so much because there's not enough moisture to grow a lot of feed to feed a lot of cows. Well, the opposite is true in Wyoming and Montana. They've got a lot of cows and a lot of feed, but a lot of their neighbors are already growing cows, so they don't have customers to sell to. So in that example, we're going to connect Phoenix with Montana and Wyoming producers and work on the logistics to get it down to you. You got 5 million plus people in Phoenix, probably 10 million now because of the illegals, but you've got so many consumers to feed in Phoenix, you just don't have the livestock to feed you. So we do have some regional efforts that need to be considered as we help people connect and source direct. And we're going to help out on the logistics side as well. So buying a quarter, half, or whole or buying in bulk will be helpful. Asking your farmer and rancher about their cull cows will be helpful. These will help reduce your costs in food. So those 2 things would help you out quite a bit if you do that. So looks like I got one more question here. This is a movement, not a question, but a statement. This is a movement to better the great American, I'm going to share it, a movement to better the great American producers that will impact generations to come. For those that may have never had finished beef, I challenge you to find a local producer and try it. Thanks, Brian. Great statement there. With that, folks, I wanted to keep this under an hour, and we did. We're just at about an hour. So with that, I'm going to close it out with our primary campaign video. If you showed us anything, if you want to stick around and watch that, please do. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your questions. Feel free to email me, support@fromthefarm.org. If you're interested in investing and backing us and helping us change the American food system and making America healthy again, please help us. Go to the wefunder.com/fromthefarm. You can see the ticker on the bottom there. We're over $86,000 raised. We start picking up the momentum in our marketing of the crowdfunding. That's going to go help. That's going to help us do a lot more, reach more people, travel the country, meet more producers, get them on board, improve our software, and of course, amplify our megaphone so we can help make America healthy again. With that, thank you all. Have a good night.
What showed us anything? It's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. And it's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer.
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves were empty.
We, the people, can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies, or buying local, is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.